I'm going to read tonight is called Knife. Dave is amazing with that knife. He chops things so fast, so evenly, and never cuts himself, no matter how much he's had to drink. I'm the opposite, slow and clumsy. The knife was a gift from Dave, and it's beautifully balanced with a carbon steel blade and a dark wooden handle. You have to clean and oil it after use, or the blade stains. While Dave's cooking, I put on some jazz. In a Silent Way is one of his old favourites, cool, energising. He pours the wine. He's a big bloke, but he moves quickly around our little kitchen with a linen cloth slung over one shoulder. I help, or hinder more like, and we talk over the day. It's good to be able to share things. I've never been this close to someone before. It feels odd to walk down the road without his hand enclosing mine. It makes me feel safe. We leave little notes for each other around the flat, under pillows, pinned on the fridge door. We spend Sundays in bed, the world reduced down to one another's bodies, until hunger makes us get up and go out when it's getting dark. We rent a flat, a dilapidated Regency townhouse that still looks lovely from a distance. But inside, the floorboards creak, windows rattle. Some doors don't close properly, and cracks snake across the plaster. A damp patch makes strange faces at us from the bedroom ceiling, and mice scamper behind the walls. It's in a great neighbourhood though, tucked around the corner from Bristol Harbourside, in one of the oldest parts of town. We've always had a drink to relax at the end of the day, but recently the amount has started to spiral. At the weekends, the time we start to drink is earlier, and sometimes I smell whiskey on Dave's breath when he gets home from work. Our Sundays in bed are now just a morning when nothing much happens, and he's becoming more aggressive, jealous. We have rows too, stupid rows. Sometimes I can't eat, upset by the amount of aggression aimed at me across the kitchen table. His drinking gets worse and I join him in it. Either that or be shut out on my own, outside his blurred, mad world, which sometimes pulls us in so far that whole tracts of time disappear behind a veil, hidden from his memory. Where did we go after the ostrich? We saw that Derek guy and went to his place. Did we? He had a very fine single malt. But increasingly the memory lapses worry him, and he won't take my word for what happened. He thinks I'm leaving stuff out. Derek made a pass at you. What? I remember now, you thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. You went upstairs with him. Are you mad? Derek's not interested in anything without a steam engine. You know that. It's a mistake trying to make a joke of it. So you fancy him? Of course I don't. You must have dreamt it. I change the subject and move on. Whatever I do, I can't stop the suspicion growing behind his clear grey eyes, clouding me. He starts picking on men we meet in the pub, but in the evening when the blur's descending, we're banned from one place when he shoves a guy so hard he falls into a table of glasses and sends a lot flying. Dave doesn't remember anything about it the next day and won't take my word for it. So we go back there and are thrown out all over again. Once I hit him, furious about something. He looks at me, shocked and hurt. He can't understand why I'm angry. He wakes every morning with the previous evening erased from his memory, not knowing how he acted or what he said. Being with a drunk is too like being on your own. I want to cut back on the amount I'm drinking, and I won't be able to do that and stay with him. I'm scared of leaving him though. We're so very close. There's still times when it's like the old days and all is right with the world. When it's bad, I feel desperate to get away from him, and especially when I've had a drink, I'm becoming a real flirt. The evening of Steve and Sandra's party starts well. I wear a new black lace dress and put my hair up. I feel great. We stop off at the Ostrich for a gin and tonic before we go to their place, and the party is well underway when we arrive. I notice Steve's eyes lingering on me as he takes my coat, and I feel turned on by it. While Dave shambles off to find a drink, Steve and I stay in the hallway talking. There's such an electrical charge between us, I find it difficult to breathe. Sandra interrupts and takes Steve off to meet someone. We both move away reluctantly. Later, the inevitable happens. After a few drinks, Steve and I accidentally find ourselves in a quiet corner and just about fall into an embrace. The strangeness of it is exciting after being with the same man for so long. We're completely involved with each other when suddenly the light goes on and Dave is standing in the doorway, not saying anything, just staring at us, his eyes sharp with hate. I feel Steve flinch. We're like a couple of guilty teenagers sneakily attempting to straighten our clothing. Dave grabs my arm. Let go of me. He won't, and I can't bear it. I can't get away from him. I kick him hard, and he lets go in surprise. I run down the stairs and out of the house. I can't bear that feeling when he won't let me go and I can't move. I'm furious and decide to walk home. Silly, really, tottering around in high heels on my own in the middle of the night, although I could probably defend myself. On my birthday, the weather is horrendous. The wind rattles the windows all day and makes it impossible to keep warm. Then in the evening, the wind drops and the fog rolls in, low over the water. The air feels stifling, damp and heavy. We go to the pub and start celebrating early, and by 10 o'clock in the evening we're both well drunk. I feel I almost have a right to flirt on my birthday, and Dave is becoming increasingly edgy. Steve and Sandra are there, and Steve and I have trouble keeping our hands off each other. Neither Dave nor Sandra is too happy about it, and I'm too far gone to notice that Dave is watching with real anger. Suddenly, he punches Steve full in the face. I scream. About 4 people grab Dave, and the landlord shouts to get him out of the pub. He's manhandled out, while Steve is still on the floor, groaning. Dave starts banging on the door and calling for me, and I know I should go out and get away before the police arrive. I just want to make sure Steve is okay before I leave. No one comes outside with me. I expect they're glad to see us both go. I can't see Dave at first, it's so dark and foggy out there. As my eyes adjust to the dim light, I hear a strange noise, more like a frog than a person, and I see him on the ground in the shadow of the wall. His lovely cashmere jumper is soaked black with blood, and he is already struggling to keep his eyes open. His grey eyes are veiled as if he can't see out. I hold his hand. I know it's a waste of time going to get an ambulance, and I want to be with him. After a few minutes, Sandra comes out and sees us and goes to get help, but it's no use. Grief hits me hard. I shut myself into our flat and rarely come out. I can't think of a reason to. Everything seems to hang motionless in the air. I'm fired from work and don't care. I stopped drinking completely. My only visitors are the police, who are relentless. I've tried not opening the door to them, but they stand there with their fingers on the bell till I answer. They ask the same questions over and over, and I give the same answers. I explain the events of that night. They suggest that I drank so much I may have had a memory blackout. I don't tell them that Dave was the one with blackouts. They found bruising on his body, a recent one on his shin, and an older one on his cheekbone and others. I look surprised and puzzled. I don't tell them anything, and neither does anyone else. They don't find the knife. In the end, they stop coming. 3 months later, Steve turns up. I don't know how he found out where I live. God knows what he thinks when I open the door. I haven't washed my hair for weeks, but at least I open the door, so I suppose I'm feeling a bit better. He comes in and has a cup of tea and we talk, or he talks. My voice is rusty from lack of use and I can't think of anything to say. He starts coming round every few days and before I know it, I'm beginning to look forward to his visits. I remember how to make conversation and start saving things up to tell him. I realise I'm going to have to get a new job and dig myself out of debt. I start thinking, perhaps I should get rid of Dave's things, clear a bit of space. Steve helps me confront the wardrobe, such an intimate thing, those clothes that still have the scent of Dave's body on them. I can't do it on my own, and I'm astonished that he offers. Behind a pile of Dave's jumpers, I find a bottle of famous grass, emergency provisions, presumably. The wisp of tissue paper from the off-licence is still around the bottle. I look at it a long time, and then hear Steve coming up the stairs. I slide the bottle into one of my boots at the back of the wardrobe. He helps me take the stuff to the charity shop or the council dump. I get rid of presents Dave gave me too, silk scarves, books, but something makes me keep the knife. It's too useful. I put it in the kitchen drawer out of sight. Steve and I gradually get closer. He is amazingly understanding and gives me so much support, and doesn't drink. A glass or two of the meal, perhaps a pint with his pals, and that's it. The relief is wonderful. Steve is always Steve. He never morphs into some monster. He may be a bit boring compared to Dave, but I know where I am with him, and I'm very happy with that. We have a routine my parents would be proud of. We map out our recipes for the week's meals, put them on the fridge pinned up with a magnet, and do the shopping for them. We want to buy our own place, and as Steve says, we need to budget accordingly. This way we rarely throw food away or get takeaways. If I'm a bit late home from work, Steve starts cooking dinner. He isn't very good at it. He gives it a go. One Friday, he's chopping carrots as I walk in and, distracted, he cuts his finger, pretty badly actually, and it bleeds really heavily. It makes me feel quite shaky. I wash it and cover it up for him, and manage to get quite a bit of blood down me in the process. He looks a bit worn, but recovers quickly, and I finish preparing dinner. He'd been using Dave's knife. I find it on the floor, covered in blood, in the shadow of the worktop. I wash it, dry and oil it, and put it back in the drawer. I'm still feeling shaky for some reason, and wish that I'd got rid of the knife with the other stuff. That Sunday, we have some friends round for lunch. They bring some really good wine with them. I'm so stressed by doing my first Sunday lunch without Dave's expertise in the kitchen that I probably have more than usual. Steve starts nagging me a bit about it, and I get snappy. He has this little nervous giggle when I get edgy, and it's getting on my nerves. I see Sandra and Jerry exchange one of those meaningful glances that couples do, and I flounce out into the kitchen in a thoroughly bad mood. The guests leave soon afterwards, and I sit down with the rest of the wine. Steve and I have a row. Although I can't remember the details, it starts with my accusing him of flirting. I sound like Dave, even to myself. At some point, I think Steve gets up and walks out of the room, perhaps to make a start on clearing up in the kitchen. I wake to a bright sun coming through the window in the early evening. I wonder what Steve is up to. As I walk into the kitchen, my feet stick to the floor. I'm surprised that I've managed to make quite so much mess with the grease from the Sunday roast. Then I look down and see it's blood. Steve is lying there, looking at me, but not looking at me. His eyes are open, but he's dead. The blood still welling around Dave's knife sunk into his chest. Thank you.